This show is for anybody out there who ever dreams about becoming an entrepreneur, starting your own business. More specifically, how many of you are working for a company, but you hate working there? Or how many of you work for a company, but you're afraid to talk about your real dreams and aspirations because you might get fired? You see, years and years ago when I worked for the Xerox Corporation in Honolulu, great company, but the only reason I was working there was to get experience in door-to-door sales, knocking on doors, which is a horrifying process, so I could become an entrepreneur. And one day I was talking to my sales manager about the business I was going to start, and he says, "You'll be fired. Don't let anybody know you're starting a business. You're supposed to sit here, drink the company Kool-Aid, pretend you love it here, and you're going to be here for the rest of your life." And I always thought that was kind of cruel. We have a life, and we have our dreams, and why couldn't I talk about my dreams? But, for those, many of you work for corporate America, it's the reason it's called a corpse oration is because people are dead in there. They're just sitting there, putting in their 9 to 5, sitting in their cubicle, sucking down some coffee and watching the clock. So when the Rich Dad Company was started, I said I didn't really want to have that kind of company. I wanted people to come to work here because they love the company, they like what we do, they like the mission. But most importantly, that working at Rich Dad supported their life, that, you give the company life, but the company has to give back life to the people. Our company has a culture where it's not required, but is strongly encouraged that everybody have a part-time business or be an investor or something. So today you're going to hear from 3 of our great employees, and they've been with us for a long while now, and one of them is leaving with heavy heart because we will miss him very much, but yet it's his life, and he's going to move on and try his hand at becoming an entrepreneur. So he goes with blessings, and it's sad but also joyous. But we'll miss him because he's a very valued person to this company. The person leaving is Dave Leong. He's been with the company about 8 years. Kathy Grady has been here the longest from the start, and Christina's been here the next longest.
Yep.
And we're going to be talking about the culture of Rich Dad. It's a little bit different than most cultures. And it starts with saying that we want you to have your own business. We want you to make money on the side and all that. So let's start with Kathy. How is the culture of Rich Dad different than other companies you may have worked for?
Well, the culture here at Rich Dad is one of encouragement, first of all. We are encouraged to seek out a side business of some kind. But what I found very beneficial here is we have an open door to discuss with other employees here, what they're going through, their experiences. And then we also have access to Rich Dad Advisors, which I've gotten many bits of pieces of information to make my real estate successful.
So your side business is you're a real estate investor?
That is correct.
And how many properties have you gone through?
Oh, gosh, many. Some of our properties we've sold off. So we sold 3 last year, and we currently have 3 going this year.
All right, very good. And then Christina.
Yep.
How is the culture here? Are we encouraging you to do what you want?
What Kathy was saying is that you've always said to us, have a plan B, and as in, don't count on having a job for the rest of your life, and you don't want to count on having a job for the rest of your life. So having a plan B for me has been many different ventures, but my latest for the last almost 2 years now has been eBay. And I do that on my spare time, up at crack of dawn and doing my stuff. And that's what you encourage, because one day when I'm old and gray, I won't have a job anymore, but I'll still be able to do eBay.
And Dave, how long have you been with us?
I've been with Rich Dad for about 8 years now, almost 8 years.
Long time.
Yeah.
And how is the culture here for you?
Well, you talk a lot about working to learn versus working to earn. And, I came here straight from the Air Force, and that's definitely not something I was expecting at all. But it was the thing that drew me here.
So you're going to move on, and what are you going to do?
I'm partnering with a company called Combat Flip Flops. My company is going to be called New Leaf Outfitters, and I'm going to be going down to Dallas, Texas to start doing that.
And what are you going to do for them?
Well, what the company is, it's an events events-based sales company, so I purchase all of my product from Combat Flip-Flops and other companies as well. The thing that sets us apart is all the products that we offer have a socially conscious benefit to them. So varying from sandals provide school for women in Afghanistan. Some jewelry provides demining in Laos. Some of our other accessories provide for food for homeless families in Dallas. So just, a little bit of everything.
So there's a social cause with everything.
With everything, yes.
And why Combat Flip-Flops? I mean, you went to the Air Force Academy. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Because I went to the Brand X School at Kings Point.
Well, Combat Flip-Flops, they were founded by former Army Rangers, and they were in Afghanistan in a boot factory, and they were watching the locals take these old boot soles and add a thong to them for their own personal use. So that's how the idea of Combat Flip-Flops came up.
So once again, it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Today we have people that have worked for Rich Dad for a long time, and we're explaining the culture here more than anything else. And the culture is of independence, that we want people to have their own lives so they come to work. Every Tuesday morning we have some form of education on the economy or whatever subject is relevant, but also everyone is required to have their own business because we don't have a 401k. And this morning we discussed the reasons why we don't have a 401k because, in my opinion, 401ks, mutual funds, ETF, funds of funds are the biggest ripoffs I have ever seen as a person who kind of understands the financial services industry. So we're talking to Dave Leong, who is leaving our company. He is an Air Force Academy grad, but like I said, is the best of the best. We have Kathy Grady, who's been with us for years, and she is the director of our operations. Nothing gets past Kathy. And Christina, who is my personal assistant, but she's also Kathy's great friend. And they put on, I can count on them. They show up everywhere. They make sure my little gigs are on time, on schedule, and perfect. But it really is about starting your own business and having your own life. But we are an education company. We're not a prison. We're not saying, hey, sit in that cubicle, watch the clock, don't go on the website, and someday you'll be rewarded with a 401k. That's not what we do. So, Christina, would you mind explaining your eBay business? Because I think that is probably the most fascinating business I have ever heard of. I don't know how you do it.
Well, I started eBay kind of by chance. A friend of mine introduced it to me and said, hey, what do you have at home that you can sell? And I realized that large men a lot of times don't like to shop out in public. So I would get all my supplies, and people donate.
How'd you find that out?
I by chance, really, just by having, buying clothes because what I do is I go to Goodwill and I stand in line every other Saturday and then go to half price.
Goodwill has a sale.
They have a sale every other Saturday.
Every other Saturday.
Yeah, me and Kathy,
Yes.
we do that. Kathy for other reasons, but so I go to Goodwill and I'm on half off Saturdays, and I get my supplies. And I was extra large clothing for men because men are less picky than women and returns are way less. But then all of a sudden I started looking at shoes, and shoes are way more, they're easier to sell than clothing.
For large men.
Not just necessarily for large men, just shoes in general, men's shoes. I don't do women's shoes because, again, women are a pain in the behind and they do returns. So long story short, shoes is what I sell, and I do that. This is a passion. I've been inside for almost 2 years because all I do is eBay. But, I'm in my spare time, which is not a lot, but I wake up early mornings and I go to bed late at night, and all I do is eBay, and I'm having a blast.
And so we're talking to all of you out there who may be thinking about starting your own business or worried about being fired from the company you work for, or your job just sucks, and you don't like the people you work with. So when I created the Rich Dad Company with my wife, Kim, we wanted to create a culture where people had a life and had a future and were learning and growing and had the ability to do what they really wanted to do that makes life interesting. So that's this program for. So if you're working for a company that sucks or at a job that sucks, as you can hear with Dave Leong, who, worked at different, one thing about a small company, you can work at many different jobs. You can learn a lot.
That's right.
And then we have Kathy Grady, who's coming up next, and she has her own real estate investment company. And we have Christina, who is an eBay business. So next we're going to go to Kathy Grady. And what Kathy mentioned earlier, she's been with our company, I don't know how many years now, but she's like she's indispensable, and everybody's indispensable, including Dave. But people have to move on. But anyway, so Kathy has her own real estate business, but there's one thing that she learned because she has access to our Rich Dad advisors.
That is correct.
So now you're making more money but paying less taxes, right? Mm-hmm. How is that?
Well, my money is made when I actually buy a house, because then I have the depreciation plus the tax benefit of owning these properties. So my taxes, I pay very little taxes legally.
Yeah, this is what happens, ladies and gentlemen. You buy stocks or a 401k, you get screwed. Point blank, because that's what we studied today, right? That was our study this morning. Mm-hmm. But when Kathy is a professional real estate investor, she makes more money, and even her income at Rich Dad is offset by depreciation, amortization, and appreciation. But that's because you have Tom Wheelwright, our tax advisor, supporting you, right?
Yes, I've gone to Tom with a few questions, tax questions, so that because of some of these properties, a few years ago I was owner-occupied, and so I knew how long I had to stay there. And before I could move on and get my next property to really get me started. And then also, too, Tom was very beneficial so that when the market in Phoenix turned from a rental more to a sell, I knew and understood when I could sell and when I should sell to avoid, again, legally the taxes.
Right. So her real estate investing offsets her salary from Rich Dad.
Yes.
And so all of you there who are complaining about taxes, you should listen to what Kathy just said. You have a 401k, you're getting screwed big time. I mean, why would you pay somebody for a mutual fund? An idiot can put a mutual fund together. Why would you do that? I don't understand that. Or a fund of funds or an ETF. You know, all you're doing is paying for somebody to steal your money.
That is correct.
So that's why Rich Dad, we don't have a 401k, and we really educate people why 401ks are a ripoff. Why mutual funds, ETFs, and funds of funds are ripoffs for stupid people. If you don't know what they're used for, you're being ripped off. So that's why we have education every Tuesday inside our company for about an hour and a half when we explain these things. So, Dave, what did it take? You have a social social cause, and it touches your heart being, you being a veteran of the Iraq War. How did you get the money together? What did your wife have to say and all this? What did you have to go through, to become an entrepreneur?
Well, I grew up doing a lot of social work, building houses, tutoring, stuff like that. And that's something that's kind of trailed off in the last, 5-10 years or whatever. Life just got busy, becomes family-focused, kid-focused, whatever the case is. And,
So you always had a social bent to you.
Yeah. But that's something that had kind of gone away. And I'd been following combat flip-flops for a couple of years, and I really liked what they were doing.
It's because of the social cause.
Right.
So how did you get the money? That's what every employee says. I don't have the money.
Well, right now I've gone through credit cards right now. My personal credit carried over to business credit. So I tried a business before. What was it, 5 years ago, that just crashed and burned because I didn't really know what the hell I was doing.
Well, that's normal too.
Yeah, but
that's why most people won't quit their jobs.
Right. So in that process, I had built some credit there. Like I fulfilled all my debts.
Paid it back.
Right. It wasn't fun, but that credit carried over. So I went back to American Express, and they're like, okay, well, you had a previous account with us, so here's your limit for 0% for 9 months. I'm like, sweet. That went away quite quickly. And so I had to go back to them. I'm like, well, not 9 months, but the 15,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
I got into Christina's eBay business.
Right. So that's how I started out the financing for it. So right now I'm working on payment terms with the suppliers. That's something I have to build credit with them. So
what's your wife have to say about all this?
I was a little shocked at first because she was very supportive of it because she knew about the company beforehand because we had talked about it before.
Combat flip-flops.
Correct. Yeah. So when they came up with the business opportunity, we talked about it at length. And originally we're talking about, hey, can we just do this on the side? And then we started putting together a business plan for it, and just looking at it. And we're like, she has a job, fortunately, so that enabled me to have the opportunity to go full hog on that.
And
so
does she have medical and all those other benefits?
she does.
Yeah. Okay, so that really does help.
Yes.
It's still scary, isn't it?
It's terrifying.
Yeah. And that's, I would say that's the main reason people don't do it, is because that pain in your gut is so intense. I still remember my last paycheck. It was in 1978. And as I was leaving Xerox, they're nice people. They all said, "You're going to fail." That was all they said. "You're going to fail. We've seen guys like you before. You're going to fail." And I said, "Yes, I'm going to fail, but I'm never coming back." And I really think, his Air Force and I was Marine Corps. That's one of the best things that the military teaches us. I have a new book out called The 8 Lessons in Military Leadership, and it's how you handle your fear. If you cannot control your fear, your emotions, your mind, your spirit, you shouldn't do it. Because what happened for me the first company was a nylon surfer wallet business. And we went straight through the roof. I mean, we were the biggest successes going. So I hit it out of the park, my first venture. The trouble was I couldn't finance it. Do you know what I mean? The more successful it became, the more money it took. Do you know what I mean? To finance inventory and all this. And pretty soon I was running a year behind in debt. I had to sell just to pay the bill from a year ago. And I tell you, success is painful. Most people think, well, I'm going to strike it. I'm going to be the next, wonder. But that's the main reason at Rich Dad we encourage people to keep your full-time job with benefits, but start a part-time business. Now, when I did that at Xerox, again, like I said, they told me I would be fired if the company found out that I had a part-time business. So that's why the culture at Rich Dad is to allow people to have their own business. So, Dave, what happens if your venture fails?
Well, if my venture fails, then I'll be picking up something else.
Yeah.
So
that's the attitude.
And you talk about being emotionally mature and being able to handle that fear. That's probably what stops a lot of people from even starting, is because they get started on an idea, they run into a hiccup or cost X amount of dollars, and then they kind of freak out and it's just done. And
the thing is, what the difference for Dave, what I hear him saying, is I did it for the experience. People say you have to love your product. I hated my nylon wallets. I didn't like them. I never liked them. I don't carry a nylon wallet. So when I hear some amateur tell me, well, you got to find the product, and products don't matter. It has nothing to do with success. You can sell socks and not even really make any difference here. Everybody's got socks at home. You know what I mean? Everybody. But the point here is this. It is the guts and the courage and the education that Dave's going to get, even if he fails. So like I said, when I started in 78, the good news was, I didn't fail. I got successful. But the success led to failure because I couldn't finance the business. And someone said, well, did you love the nylon wallets? I said, no. But it made me smarter because then I had to really start thinking. And the problem I have with the effing school system is because they tell you there's only one answer. It's the answer in the back of the teacher's manual. As entrepreneurs, there are millions of answers. You got to keep finding it and working, and in that process, you get smarter. So once again, this is the Rich Dad Radio Show. We're talking to 3 of Rich Dad employees. Dave Leong, who's leaving the company to start work with Combat Flip-Flops. Kathy Grady, who's the Director of Operations, and she has her own real estate investment company. And she just talked about how being a real estate investor means she makes more money and pays less tax on her income. And Christina, who is a successful eBay business. So that's what we're talking about today. And it's for those of you sitting at your desk saying, oh, what if I fail? I don't have the money. Or what is my wife or what is my husband going to say? What are my friends are going to say? You see, if that fear and that doubt runs your life, keep your job. We at Rich Dad know that's why we encourage every one of the people that work with our company to have their own part-time business. Even our CEO and president, Shane, they have multiple businesses because we're entrepreneurs. I have multiple businesses. But that is the spirit and the culture of the Rich Dad company. So, Christina, going into your eBay business right now, so you're selling oversized shoes, right? Size 13 plus.
Well, those are good sellers, but I sell anything that is men's shoes, any men's shoes.
So you would sell my shoes too?
I could sell your shoes too.
Why? Why would somebody buy used shoes? I don't understand that.
If there's a deal to be had, you can sell anything.
But I know that, but that's what I'm saying. Every time I talk to Christina, her phone goes off. She goes, "Yeah, I just sold something," So then I want to know about margin right away. Yeah, I bought it for $3. I sold it for $49.50.
Oh, I just sold a pair of Doc Martens that I bought for $1.50. I sold them for $50.
Jesus.
Who's buying Doc Martens? Come on.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
But why? Why is somebody buying that stuff?
Honestly, I don't care because
Wait. But Christina, you know something that is unique to you. That's what I mean. Every time I talk to you and I talk to Kathy and I talk to Dave, man, these guys are geniuses. Because I would never have figured out shoes.
Well, it really.
Why would I buy dirty old shoes?
Do you know what? That's a good question. But I just want to make one point because you keep saying that if you have a job that you hate or you have a boss that tells you, you can't leave or you can't do anything else. I love my job. I do my job 365 days a year.
Christina's the best.
And
Kathy's
I work but I work 24/7, but I still found something that also makes me happy and makes me money at the same time. So you don't have to hate your job to try to find something. You can still love your job and find a side business in your spare time.
Our guest today, Dave Leong, is a Rich Dad employee, but he is now leaving to become an entrepreneur, which we encouraged. Been with the company 8 years. And he's going into what he calls combat flip-flops, but it's not the flip-flop business. It's the social responsibility or the social cause behind it. And his flip-flops are made in Afghanistan, is that correct?
Colombia.
Oh, I thought they made them in Afghanistan.
Well, we have other things made in Afghanistan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then the funds go back to fund a school?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, in Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan.
And you served in Iraq, right?
Yes.
And what was your job in Iraq?
I was a contract manager.
Okay.
Out in Iraq.
So Dave is one of those smart guys who went to Air Force Academy, which I didn't go. And we have Kathy Grady, who's been with the company the longest. She's the director of operations, and her business is real estate. And the lesson here is this. Because she's also on her part-time, on her spare time, a professional real estate investor, she makes more money, not only from real estate, but the depreciation from a real estate investments, which you cannot do in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, is that she pays less taxes. So she makes more money and pays less taxes. So we've got Christina, who's worked with us for a long time, my personal assistant, and she is a genius. And I see her, Christina, every morning at 8:30 she shows up, but every morning her phone's going off, and she's making money on eBay now selling men's shoes.
Yes.
I cannot believe it. So the real purpose of today's show is not only to discuss the rich dad culture, but this is for those of you out there who may hate your job, or complaining about not making enough money, or have dreams of someday becoming an entrepreneur. At Rich Dad, we encourage people to be entrepreneurs. I find people at Rich Dad talking about their businesses and all this. When I worked for Xerox back in the 70s, I would have got fired for that. So what I had to do in Honolulu is I go across the street. I had an office across the street, directly across the street, building my nylon and Velcro surfer wallet business. And this is the point, ladies and gentlemen. People say you have to love your product. I hated my product. I don't like nylon wallets. But I did it because I knew I would learn something. You cannot learn to be an entrepreneur being an employee only. It'll be just this dream sitting in the back of your head. So that's why every person in the culture of Rich Dad is to have their own business or be an investor. So now, Kathy, not only do you make more money and you have just part-time business as an investor, but your husband and you are involved, right?
That is correct.
And so your husband is, what do you say about her husband, Will?
Well, we all want a Will, meaning Will is brilliant, and we all want one.
Yes,
he is a great guy, and he is a contractor.
Yes.
So it's a perfect marriage because you love decorating and Will loves fixing, right?
Sure. Will was a contractor previously.
He is a contractor.
Yeah.
He's a natural at it.
He's a natural at it, and I have a vision in a house when we go look, and he can make that vision happen.
Many people ask me, how do you work with Kim 24/7? I said I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
One thing I don't like about corporate America, and it's kind of a policy here, is you're not supposed to date inside the company. You can have sex, but you can't date. You're not supposed to get married and all that stuff. So the corporate culture really is to separate husband and wife or boyfriend and boyfriends, whatever the case may
Right.
be. And I've seen Will. We have educational events and all this,
Yes.
and Will shows up, and he has tremendous support. He pitches in, he works really hard, and all this. So he also supports the Rich Dad Company.
That's right.
So we're going to go into right now. One last question, Christina, which I really don't understand. So you sell also oversized men's shoes, right?
Yes. Anytime I see a pair of shoes that are size 13 or up, that's a gold mine for me because they're hard to find. So anyone, and there's not a lot of big feet here in Arizona, but the people that do donate them, I don't know where they come from, but they donate their shoes.
We have the Phoenix Suns here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But big shoes is a gold mine because you have a hard time finding them.
So the other thing I found out from, because her little cell phone goes off, and she's making money while she's working here at Rich Dad and working at the company. I'm going, it's just amazing.
Yep.
Bing, bing. Oh, I just made some more money.
Even my mother knows the sound of a sale of cha-ching. It's awesome.
But you're buying Doc Martens and all that. They sell in Asia?
Yeah. So recently, not too long ago, I went into what they call on eBay global shipping. And global shipping means that I can sell worldwide,
Jesus.
but all I do is I don't have to worry about duties. I don't have to worry about imports. All I do is to send to their shipping supply. What do you call it?
Hub.
Shipping hub. Thank you. Shipping hub in Kentucky, and they take care of the rest. But that means I'm now an international seller. So if I see a pair of Doc Martens, I am almost guaranteed that the buyer will have a Asian name in
Wow.
Asia. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That is amazing. That is amazing. This is the culture of Rich Dad. We encourage people to have their own part-time businesses or investments and all this, and there's many benefits to it. So what advice would you have for somebody sitting there right now listening to this radio program going, well, that's nice for you, man, but what about me?
Well,
let's start.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let's start with Dave. You're leaving in a few days. What would you suggest? Because you're now taking that big leap. Like I said, 1978, I remember my last paycheck. It goes quick.
Yeah, my suggestion would be to volunteer. I mean, whether that's within the company for volunteer for special project or volunteer with an organization locally, whatever the case is, you'll be in things and be required to do things you have no idea about.
Right.
And once you get into it, you'll find out, hey, it's really not that difficult. I just need to switch my brain on how I think about how to do a certain task.
That is probably the most important piece of advice I've heard. Because the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs work for free. There's no guarantee you're going to be paid. So the reason I got into the education business is I used to volunteer at seminars because they always needed, helpers and all that. So like Kathy and Christina and husband Will always there working, and stuff like this. And I found out when I volunteer, I learn more. And so today I own an education company and operate on the same principle. So I worked for free. When I was building my wallet company, I worked for 2 years for free. And like I said, when I left the Xerox in 78, that cash goes so fast. But it's that spirit that kept me going. So Kathy, what is it that really turns you on about what you do? What advice would you have for somebody sitting there thinking, oh, I don't have the money to do real estate?
Well, what really helped me to turn my real estate around was I took on a mentor, and then I went through coaching, Rich Dad coaching, which made me realize everybody has 24 hours in a day, but what do I do with the time? So I just prioritize my time. And this is something I wanted to do, and we all have time for what we want to do.
So how did you find a mentor?
I have a friend who is he sells real estate. And so he actually now...
He's in the market every day.
He's in the market every day. Right. So I would bend his ear about many things because he also has investment property. And actually he has become our realtor. So he makes money when we buy. He makes money when we sell. So he brings me deals that sometimes don't even hit the market. And
that is another key of being an entrepreneur. You got to be generous.
Yes.
It's like the best real estate deal Kim and I ever found is we gave our realtor 10% of the deal. Mm-hmm. So he got his commission, plus he owns 10% of the deal.
Yep.
You'd be surprised when you're generous. You get a lot of good stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I meet people who have know a real estate person. They'll say they're making 6%. they'll ask them, do it for 3%.
Never.
And they wonder why they don't get any good deals. So another thing about being an entrepreneur is it helps to be generous. Volunteer, help other people. And Christina, what would you advise somebody sitting at home right now?
I would just say, what is your passion? What is it that what makes you happy
so
besides your job?
What is your passion with? That's easier said than done because most
For
people
sure.
are dead anyway. But
well,
what really turns you on about selling men's shoes?
Well, it's not just the shoes, but it's doing the eBay business. My reviews? My reviews make my day. They make my year. Like if I sell,
it turns you on that people love what you do.
Absolutely, getting positive feedback from one of my customers is actually worth more to me than the money that I make on whatever I sell.
And that's the next thing to be an entrepreneur. You've really got to want to serve other people. Now, if you just get into the eBay business because you want to make money, you probably won't be happy there, right?
No, because then it's all about the bottom line. And sure, you want to make money, but making your customers happy is way more rewarding, and you'll sell a lot more because people go back and look at your reviews, and if it's between you and another seller, they'll go with you because you have better reviews.
Right. And Christina's been, for Kim and I, our personal assistant, and she really does love serving people. In fact, your education is in service, right?
Yes, hotel industry, hotel management.
And where was this?
In Switzerland.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
So anyway, it really is your passion to do something. If you're there for the money, you really shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
No.
You know what I mean? If you're not willing to volunteer and help other people, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. And if you're really not turned on about your work and all this, like you and Christina hang out at Goodwill, right?
Yes. My purpose is a little bit different than Christina's because we have learned that if I can stage a house, people can, it's more attractive to them and the houses sell quicker. So my purpose for going is to repurpose furniture and just decorative pieces for
to make people
homes.
happy.
Absolutely.
To get
They
the house
love
of
it.
their dreams.
And that's right up your alley, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I love it.
Yeah. So that really is the key to being an entrepreneur. And so that's why what turns me on, what makes me happy, that's why the culture at Rich Dad is to give life to people. So now the most popular part of our program here is called Ask Robert. And if you have a question for Ask Robert, you can submit your questions to richdadradio.com. Submit your questions once again to richdadradio.com. Specify Ask Robert. So, Melissa, what's the first question?
Thanks, Robert. Our first question today comes from Ryan in Kansas City. Favorite book, Unfair Advantage. He says, I've been with the same company for 20 years, and now it's being sold to a competitor. I think I'm going to be losing my job soon, and I'm just now realizing I should have been more prepared for this time. I have very little savings and thought I should try network marketing. How do you pick a company to get involved with?
Well, first of all, I feel for you. One of the reasons I prepared to be an entrepreneur is I figured the same thing would happen to me. Because it was my dad, my poor dad, with a PhD who got fired at 50. And Kim's father also got fired at 50. And these were good men, great educations, great experience, hardworking. But you get fired today. And especially today in the technology world, your company could be here today, gone to Maui. Because technology is going to replace companies faster and faster and faster. And if the people you work for cannot adapt and change your company to changing technology, more and more people will get fired. But this is what I have to say. I think it might be too late to consider network marketing. And I'll say this to everybody listening to this. Start network marketing exactly as the people at Rich Dad did here in your spare time. You keep your full-time job and do it in your spare time. But to count on network marketing at the start, when you lose your job, I think you're too late because it generally takes 2 to 5 years to actually get a business off the ground. So that's why Dave Leong, in our company, he's now going to Combat Slippers or whatever he's doing. He's been with us 8 years preparing for his escape from Rich Dad. And Kathy Grady, she and her husband Will been working at real estate, and they found they actually make more money and pay less taxes, but also they're building assets that, heaven forbid, if not that she would, but if she lost her job, she has her real estate to fall back on. And then Christina, she makes so much money by the minute selling large shoes on eBay. She doesn't really need this job at Rich Dad. So for all of you listening out there, please listen to that. The reason we had this program with our employees is being an entrepreneur is not something you do tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's not something you'd be successful at. As I said, I started my nylon and Velcro surfer wallet business, the Ripper wallet business, and I was successful, but I didn't have the skills to handle success. I couldn't finance success. Now it takes a while to learn that one too. So I feel for you, but right now, rather than looking at network marketing, I would be asking yourself, what business do I want to get into? Let me give an example. I'm not saying to do this, but if you want to start your own restaurant, go work as a busboy. You know, learn the restaurant business from the bottom up. You don't have to be the owner or the manager. Learn from the business. That's what Dave Leong says. You volunteer. You go and work for people just so you can learn the business. The trouble with most employees are so highly specialized that if the company doesn't need you, they don't need you. Dave Leong's different. He's Air Force Academy. He's got great experience. He's great discipline, very smart guy. He could be hired by any company. He just doesn't want that job. So for those of you listening, I really pray for you. You know, a lot of people will be losing their jobs in the future. And so they'll be like my poor dad at age 50, unemployed. And this is, you don't wait till you're 50. That's what I'm trying to say. So network marketing is great. Start that in your spare time. The way you find out a great company is just go listen to different companies. Don't listen to one sales pitch. Listen to 10, you know, until you find people you like. But I wouldn't be counting on network marketing to supplement your full-time salary day one. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Courtney in Tampa, Florida. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She says, I'm a corporate rat on the wheel, as you say, during the day, and I'm trying to make the best use of my spare time to start a home-based business. It's hard for me to find the time to grow my side business. I keep telling my husband I could do better if I quit my day job, but he doesn't support me. How did you and Kim make it work in your marriage and your businesses?
You have a very serious problem. The reason I had Kathy on with her husband, Will, if your husband or wife does not support you, you have bigger problems. Next question.
Our next question comes from Tim in Portland, Oregon. Favorite book, Midas Touch. He says, I have a good job, but I also have been working on an idea for a new business for the last couple of years. I think I'm ready to launch, but I'll need $10,000 to get started. I don't have the money and will need to ask my family and friends for the seed money. How can I convince them that my idea will work and that they will get their money back?
I don't know how you do that. You know, I'll tell you something. That money will be gone so fast, you won't believe how fast money goes when you leave the company. So if I were you, what that tells me is you really don't have enough experience yet. And I appreciate the question. But if you can't raise $10,000, you shouldn't start a business. You know, in my lifetime, I've probably raised $100 million just for my businesses. That's why I went to work for Xerox, so I could learn how to sell. So for somebody in this question, you should join a network marketing company and learn how to sell. Because if you can't sell in network marketing, you can't raise money someplace else. It's really tough. So all I do as an entrepreneur is I'm raising capital every single day. If I don't raise capital, this company shuts down. So the number one skill of an entrepreneur is how to sell and raise capital. If you can't raise $10,000, I don't think you're ready to do it yet. So I would join a network marketing company and learn how to sell. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Scott in New Zealand. Favorite book, Midas Touch. He says, I am building a newer company and I need help. I'm looking for a strategic partner or an advisor. How much of the company should I be giving up for these types of people, if any? Is there a standard percentage depending on what they bring to the table, like investment money or knowledge?
That's a very, very tough question, and there's no answer to it. My track record with strategic partners is not good. The partner I brought in for the Rich Dad company turned out to be very dishonest, but I couldn't tell from the start. You know, it's much like a marriage. You know, the person may look good, nice, good, you know, seems good, but the moment you get married, you find out who you married. So you never know who your partner is until going gets tough and stuff like that. So I don't have an answer for you. It's the same question as how do you find a good husband or wife? Because if you find a good husband or wife, life is wonderful. You find a bad one, life is hell. Same is true in business. So it's trial and error. What I suggest is you always have a prenup in marriage. I don't have one, but or a buy-sell before you get into it, so you know what's going to happen and drawn up by an attorney. What happens if the partnership turns sour? You have to figure out the end just in case everything goes bad before you start the business. But you can never tell. That's the risk. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Stefan in Rhode Island. Favorite book, Unfair Advantage. He says, what should be my first priority? Getting out of bad debt and improving my credit score, or getting an investment property? Right now, I have bad credit score and not much savings, so I'd have to find an investment partner for my real estate.
Jesus Christ. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Man, you better figure out why you're so screwed up. I mean, that's really what you got to do. I'm not criticizing you. I'm talking to me right now, because that's how I started also. You know, I had nearly $1 million from a crash of my first nylon and Velcro successful business. At the same time, I had to pay that off, and at the same time invest in real estate. So you better figure out what you're not doing, what you don't learn. I have an accountant or a friend of yours go over your personal experiences and your budgeting, where your losses came in, and learn from your mistakes. It's one of the biggest problems I have with school teachers and the school system is you're not allowed to admit you made mistakes. Because in our world, if you say you made a mistake, you're stupid. Actually, congratulations for screwing up. But now figure out how you screwed up. You know, after I lost my the nylon and Velcro surfer wallet business, I was $700,000 in debt. The best advice came from a friend of mine who was an entrepreneur. He says, I want you to spend 2 days writing down every mistake you made. Every single mistake. And then sit there and look at it and ask yourself, what didn't I know? We had Dr. Alexander Elders on this program a few days ago. He was talking about how to be a stock trader. And he's a psychiatrist as well as a medical doctor. And he says the biggest problem with most people, they can't say, I don't know. And I find that comes from our school system, because if you say you don't know, you're considered stupid. And in business, if you say you don't know, you're fired. So what I'm saying right now, this is part of a person's culture. It's in their DNA to pretend they know everything. Right now, because you're so stupid, you have an opportunity to get smart, but only if you'll actually take the time and sit down. It took me 2 full days, and I think it was 16 pages of F-ups. I did this, and most of it was just judgment calls. It wasn't that I'm a bad person. I said, I just didn't know this, I didn't know that. I should have known this, I should have known. And by the end of it, you know, I was still $750,000 in debt, but I was smarter from my stupidity. And the way you get smart as an entrepreneur is by being stupid first. Now, that's why they don't teach entrepreneurship at school.